You're watching a replay of Brain Drain with Rich Cabaceres. For more videos just like this, hit that red subscribe button.
And good morning. How about that State of the Union address last night? I'm Rich Cabaceres. This is Brain Drain on the legendary 1480 WSAR. We bring new and inventive ways to give you the sound that you want to hear and the look that you want to hear all over the internet, all over your phone, all over the airwaves. You can go to WSAR.com, Spindle City Autoglass, Studio Cam, and watch us live in the studio, throughout the studio, so you can see what I'm doing during the breaks, unless I run out of the room real quick to get some more water, but you can see what I'm doing throughout the break. You can watch me on Facebook Live on the J&J Diamond Jewelers Facebook Live cam. You can also comment below and join the conversation. You know how do you get to that cam? You go to Facebook, you type in the search bar, Brain Drain with Rich Cabaceres. The page pops up, you like the page, you scroll down, and you join the conversation that way. You also can listen to us anywhere in the world by going to the TuneIn Radio app. That's right, the TuneIn Radio app is absolutely free. You can download it in the App Store, and when you type in WSAR in the search bar, my voice comes to you live in your ears Monday through Thursday, 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And lastly, if you want to listen to it the old school way, you're driving to work, you're driving somewhere, you're in your house, and you want to turn on the radio, like somebody was telling me last night, they turn off the TV, they turn on the radio, they sit back and they listen. You can listen to us on 1480 AM from Cape Cod to Rhode Island and anywhere in the South Coast, and now I'm being told in the greater Boston area. So if you want to join the conversation, we're going to be talking about the State of the Union address, how you feel about it. Do you think he accomplished his goal? And by he, I mean Donald Trump. Do you think Donald Trump did more to make you feel more confident in him? Call in 508-673-1480, and we're going to discuss not only what he talked about, we're going to discuss what the response was. We had Joe Kennedy doing the Democratic response from my alma mater, Diamond Regional Vocational Technical High School, the paragon of vocational education in this country. Joe Kennedy gave the speech, the Democratic response to the State of the Union address, which was amazing. But who do you think represented you more so? Do you think it was Joe Kennedy with the State of the Union response? Or do you think that it was the actual President of the United States who gave the State of the Union address? And we got somebody on the line already. Good morning, you're live on the legendary 1480 WSAR. What say you?
The majority of the people in this country, the voters anyways, is my feeling. And what you seen last night in that State of the
Well, one thing I think you'll be interested in is we're actually going to be doing a fact check. There's already fact check information coming out, and we're going to be going through that to see what he said, which was true, what he said was false. But here's the thing that upsets me about all of these State of the Union addresses. The fact that we have to do a fact check. Shouldn't they just be honest all the way across the board? You know, did you hear the Democratic? Now, to that point, a Republican would say he has followed through with the tax legislation. He's kind of following through with what he wants to do with immigration. So, Now, my last question to you before we go to the break is, did you see the Democratic response posed by Joe Kennedy? Yeah, and there's one thing I can say about that speech, and it was sincerity. It seemed very sincere. What do you? I think sincere was the proper word. Thank you so much for your points. Thank you for your opinions. Have a great day. You're listening to Brain Drain on the legendary 1480 WSAR. If you want to join the conversation, we're going into a commercial break. On the other side of the break, call in 508-673-1480. Also, if you're waiting on the line, stay on the line because you don't want to lose your spot. We have a hot topic today. We have a jam-packed show. So if you're looking for that delicious Asian fusion food that you haven't had lately or you've never had, you're going to want to go over to New East on Route 6 in Dartmouth, Massachusetts to try that Asian fusion food that your life has been missing. Whether it's General Tso's chicken or you love sushi the way that I do, New East has the answer. They do karaoke on Friday nights, and who knows, you might catch me with a microphone rocking out to my favorite songs. And you don't know what those favorite songs are because, frankly, I don't even play a lot of them on here. So if you're having a party, they have the space to host while you relax and enjoy a drink. Cure the cravings at New East today. See you on the other side of the break, 508-673-1480, or comment below on the J&J Jewelers Facebook Live cam.
Are you tired of renting? Do you want to make your dream of owning a home become a reality? To start today, call CDA. This is Michael Dion, Executive Director, Chief Financial Officer of the Fall River Community Development Agency. The Fall River Community Development Agency can help you make your dream of home ownership become a reality by assisting you with a first-time home buyer loan. CDA will assist you with a loan of $10,000 or 6% of the purchase price of the house, whichever is greater. You don't make payments on the loan, retain the house as your primary residence for 5 years, and that loan then converts to a grant. Restrictions do apply. For more information on program qualifications and instructions and how to apply, please call 508-679-0131 or visit us at Fall River Government Center, 4th floor, room 414, or on our website, buyfallrivernow.com. Again, the number to call is 508-679-0131, buyfallrivernow.com. Here at the Fall River Community Development Agency, we are helping you attain the American dream of owning a home.
Join Jim DuPont with Bright Thoughts, Tuesday through Friday from 3 to 4 on 1480 WSAR. Tune in to hear conservative, right of center, and pro-Republican views of the current issues at the local, state, and national levels. Jim will also break down what's going on in Somerset, Swansea, Berkeley, Raynham, and Rehoboth. Bright Thoughts with Jim DuPont, Tuesday through Friday from 3 to 4 on 1480 WSAR. Every interview, special programming, the WSAR editorials, and much more are available right now on
And we're back here on the legendary 1480 WSAR. I am Rich Cabaceres, and you are listening to Brain Drain. How about that? So, you can listen to us anywhere in the country by going to WSAR.com and watching the Spindle City Autoglass studio cam, where you can see me in the studio waving at the cameras right now. You can watch me on the Facebook Live feed, the J&J Jewelers Facebook Live feed, by going to Brain Drain with Rich Cabaceres. You can scroll down and comment below and join the conversation. We're talking about the State of the Union address today. We're talking about the response to the State of the Union address. Do you feel better about Donald Trump? Do you feel worse about Donald Trump after the State of the Union address? Call in 508-673-1480. We're going right back to the lines. You are live on the legendary 1480 WSAR. Good morning. How you doing today? Thank you. I like to think all of them are good tunes. Well, you know what? I get to see Fall River, and I get to stand in Diamond Regional Vocational Technical High School, my alma mater, and watch the Democratic response to the State of the Union address. And anybody who knows me knows I'm not a Democrat. But how about that? We got to experience that from the paragon of vocational education in this country, Diamond Regional Vocational Technical High School. That's really, really cool. And you know, it was right in our backyard. Wow. Wow. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, if you can put aside that money, and it makes you a lot better off. So what say you about the State of the Union? Well, this wasn't a commercial. This wasn't a commercial. This was an interview. This was an interview from the news with the Democratic Party, and he could have done that in Washington, D.C. He could have done that anywhere else in the world, and he chose the paragon of vocational education, Diamond Regional Vocational Technical High School. No, he did not. You know, the one thing I could say that I didn't like was it was so long. Yeah, you know, and to that point, he was addressing the entire nation. And just to get the mention is something that is great, in my opinion. But I hear you. You want to see more because you're from the area. But what if you're somebody who's listening from California, from Idaho, and you're listening to the Democratic response? Well, thank you for your points. Have a great day. You're live on the legendary 1480 WSAR. Good morning. Doing great, and I'm going to speak for them and say that they're doing okay. It was a long night last night. I think you're right. People are tired of politics. Now, it's interesting. To your point, it's interesting because when I was watching the State of the Union address, I was also watching the polling. And it's funny because even when Donald Trump made a great point, because he didn't stink the entire time, even if you disliked him, it was impossible for him to stink the entire time. And if you really like him, it was impossible for him to be great the entire time. There were some things that you didn't like, there were some things that you liked. But even on the points that everybody should have stood up for, or everybody should have been happy about, I was watching the polling and the Democratic line stayed flat, which shows me that it's more of a they dislike Donald Trump than what he says, which is scary to me because is that the way we're going to treat all of our presidents? You know, and that's the thing. Is Congress able to do their job? Is Congress doing their job? Is Senate doing their job because of the extremes? I think you're right. Have a great day. So, some of the Facebook comments. Trump hit it out of the park and the Democrats proved how useless and out of touch they are by how they acted during the speech. Kennedy was making excuses for the Democrats and needs to be told to put less butter on his bagel from now on, or at least wipe his face before he goes on camera. Somebody else says, the Democrats were horribly disrespectful to our country. They need to get their heads out of their butts and realize they don't work for illegals. They work for American citizens of this country. Stop pushing all the hateful misery. Somebody else says, Fall River resident who says Kennedy knows anything about this city. The city was not built by immigration. It was taken over by immigration.
Going back to the lines. You're live on the legendary 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Rich. Good show as always.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to have to correct Chuck. The number one threat to national security in the United States is the national debt, and that's what the military chiefs of staff both agree on. They all agree on. So if you can't pay your debts, you can't be powerhouse, and you can't have a military force. As far as both Donald Trump and Joe Kennedy. They fail to mention that 1% owns 99% of the world wealth, the money, the finances, and the economic resources. And unfortunately, in the United States, 99% of the working class and the middle class, they're losing more and more of their income. And if you look at the figures, the United States, as far as the poor, that number is rising.
Okay.
And Joe Kennedy, I mean, let's face it, he belongs to the 1%, and Donald Trump can't relate either. So both political parties have contributed to the decline of the United States in decades. And I know Donald Trump wants to make America great again, but all the jobs the millions of jobs that we've lost over the decades, that's not going to come back in one presidential term. Let's face it. I mean, he has to be more truthful with the American people. I mean, it's really nice that Joe came down to Fall River, but let's face it. I mean, it's a political speech. I mean, I could see he was like an actor on a Shakespearean play. I mean, he was his cadence and so forth. It's more of the same. And all I have to say is, both political parties, if they care about the American people, let's stop focusing on the American people and not the 1%, because Washington clearly works for the 1%, the elites.
You know, I think you're making a very fair point about who Washington works for. Thank you so much for your call. Have a great day. You're live on the legendary 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Good morning, Rich. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm great. The debt is a problem.
Yep.
And Donald Trump's administration has exploded the debt. So, and all for the 1%. It's just not right. The way he treats normal people, he gives praise to hardworking, good people. But then he does all the rewarding at the top. The corporate rate might have been high, but most of them had loopholes to get around that. And he could have dropped it just maybe to 25%. That still would have been a big drop but not to where it is.
So what is your impression on his speech and Joe Kennedy's speech?
Well, I thought Donald Trump bragged about himself too much.
Okay.
And there were some subtle threats. For instance, if you don't agree with me, he didn't say these words, but this is what he meant. If you don't agree with me and my administration, we're going to fire you. Did you hear that?
Yeah,
Here?
you know, it's interesting because I think that he wanted to come across as strong. And I think he did that. And I think I
Go
think
ahead.
they both accomplished the goals that they set to accomplish. Joe Kennedy came across as somebody who's willing to work with both sides of the aisle, and he came across as somebody who's sincere.
He is sincere.
Donald Trump
His
came
whole family has been public service.
and Donald Trump came across as somebody who was strong, who wanted to get people to work together and try to change the country
yes, but
through
his
strength.
words are empty. He inherited a very good economy, gives no credit to his predecessors, and he's just exploded the debt, and that's going to be a huge issue that the Republicans can then turn around and say, oh, well, we have to cut Medicare and we have to cut Social Security because those are way too expensive. While meanwhile, adding more to the debt, it's just a conundrum. It's really scary for me. I'm like, not for me so much because I'm at the end of things, but
Thank you so much for your points. I really appreciate them. I think a lot of people share your opinions.
Oh, and about Joe Kennedy picking Diamond,
Sure.
I think it's wonderful that he chose to go to a vocational school. And I wonder, Donald Trump mentioned vocational education, so he must
he
have
did.
gotten that from the fact that Joe was speaking. I think
Right.
it's good though. I think we should focus more on that.
Have a great day.
You too.
And that's right. He chose Diamond Regional Vocational Technical High School, my alma mater, the paragon of vocational education in the country of the United States, to give his speech from. So, you know, it's an honor to me and anybody else who went to Diamond. But also, I want to kind of get into some of the Facebook comments. Somebody said people should do their genealogy and DNA. No one is 100% anything. They also might find they have one or two illegal relatives. Somebody else said, there is no official language. Diversity is what makes our country great. What say you? You're live on the legendary 1480 WSAR.
First of all, Teddy, talk about liars. Every time that woman, Hillary Clinton, opens her mouth, there's a lie coming out. Why would she destroy all those pads and all those records that she had if she wasn't lying? And didn't she give Russia uranium, made a deal for uranium?
So I want to stop you there, caller, and for one reason. What about isms, talking about Hillary Clinton, who isn't part of the conversation? I get where you're going, and we can have that conversation another day, but if we're going to talk about Donald Trump and we're going to talk about Joe Kennedy, then let's keep the conversation to them and not try to deflect by using...
All right, Donald Trump, I think, is working for the American people for a change, in my opinion.
Okay, I think that's a fair opinion.
Yeah. Didn't people get bonuses?
Yeah, people got bonuses, people got pay raises in this tax cut. I think that's a fair point.
Absolutely. And you know what party started taxing Social Security? Was the Democratic Party.
Well, and both parties have dipped into the Social Security system since.
Yes, and who started that? That was Johnson. Ted Johnson started tapping into the Social Security. It was supposed to be left alone. That was a Democrat. I mean, give me a break.
Yeah. I think you bring up some fair points, but the other thing is to point at the Democratic Party and say that they're the sole responsibility of a lot of this stuff. I think both parties are to blame, and that's part of the problem with the system, is people point at one group or another group, and they try to blame those folks, as opposed to just say, hey, the system is messed up and we need to fix it. So we should be looking at them as individuals as opposed to parties. What say you?
Absolutely. You know, some of them, like I said before, you can tell a politician's lying when his mouth is moving.
Thank you so much for your call.
Okay, buddy.
Have a great day.
Bye.
So on the other side of the news break, we're going to have Sheriff Tom Hodgson come on and talk about what he thought about the State of the Union address and the response. We're going to continue the conversation because we're talking about the State of the Union address. What was your take on it? And we're also talking about the Democratic response to the State of the Union address. And on the line, we have special guest Sheriff Tom Hodgson, Republican, Bristol County Sheriff. How you doing?
Good. Good morning. Great to be on with you.
It's a great morning to be on with you. So what do you make of the State of the Union address? What did you think of how Donald Trump did?
I thought the president did a phenomenal job. I think he was right on point with regards to what I think the American people are concerned about, and certainly what he hopes we can do in the future to continue to improve upon what he's already accomplished in a very short period of time, and with regards to our economy, with regards to the advancements our military are making, and reestablishing the strength of our military and support for our veterans, and all of that. The country's clearly on the move, and I think the American people see that.
So, as a sheriff, I know you have a close relationship with the ICE agency, and he talked about them last night, saying that he was going to allow them, I think his words were, to do their job. What do you think about that?
Well, look, that's been something that we've been fighting for a long time. I've been out of the border on 3 different occasions. I've been working on immigration reform for almost 20 years, going back to the days of Henry Hyde and Barney Frank. When President Reagan was in, he agreed to give amnesty to 3 million immigrants, and what the exchange for that would be that we would implement our security plan and begin securing that southern border. He gave the 3 million, and the promise never came. The rest of the promise never came from the other side. Since that time, you can see what's happened. I mean, the drug cartels are flooding drugs into our country. We've had terrorists stopped at the border. Some have gotten through. The situation in our streets with MS-13 and these gangs is out of control. Sex trafficking, human trafficking, out of control. We know these mules for the drug cartels are picking up young kids and taking them on a 1,000-mile trek. They're abusing them along the way. These young girls are being raped and then brought to our border with no support of their family or anyone else, and pushed off to some foster care place somewhere in the country. This can't go on in America. You know, we have rules, we have laws. If people don't like the laws, then they need to change them. But we can't have elected officials in this country deciding, which laws they want to follow and which ones they don't. We have a process. We need to follow it, and we certainly can't ask law enforcement, ICE officials and people like that, not to live up to the oath that they took and the promise they made to the American people. And that is to do whatever they are charged with doing in keeping the border secure and making sure that people don't come into our country and end up killing innocent people like we've seen with so many of these family members of angel moms and dads that we see time and time again saying, you can't do this to other families. We've already been through this and lost our own loved ones. So he's right to support law enforcement. The president's been right all along about if you don't like the law, then change it. But in the meantime, you can't pick and choose any more than you would expect an elected official to think that it's okay for the citizens to pick and choose. Imagine if somebody said to a mayor, look, I don't like what you're using some of our tax dollars for, so I'm just not going to pay my taxes, and I don't expect you're going to do anything about it because I choose not to follow that rule or that law.
We're talking to Sheriff Tom Hodgson, Republican from Bristol County, Massachusetts, and recently we had a government shutdown at the Congressional or the Senate level, and that is because they couldn't come together on the DACA deal, the DREAMA deal, and government was shut down for a period of time. What do you think needs to happen to kind of get this done? Do you think that we need to stop allowing people to kind of continue going through the process of being on the DACA program? Do you think that it should be allowed? What say you?
No, here's what I think needs to happen. And again, I've been working on this for 20 years. It's clear, and I blame both sides for using this issue over the last 20 years as a political football. Each party, whenever they would get close, would try to make the other party look bad by throwing some obstruction in there so that something wouldn't pass, and it would make the other party appear as though they were anti-immigrant. What needs to happen is we need to sit down. first of all, get the border secured. Fund the border security plan. It's not going to be an entire wall that was cyber things, just like they do in Israel. Get that done. That's the first thing. You have to close off the end of the pipe. Otherwise, reform inside the country is great, except you aren't stopping the flow. You got to stop the flow. Once you do that, they need to implement. While they're building the wall, they need to sit down and deal with E-Verify. Every business should be required to use E-Verify to make sure they're not hiring people that they shouldn't be hiring. We need, at the same time, for them to sit down and look at the time frame and the process. If it's antiquated for people to apply to get citizenship, then update it. But the problem you have is you have members of Congress who sit in the House of Representatives. They sit there for 2 years. They're not going to spend their time really sitting in a room, drilling down, getting into the weeds about how to change this stuff. And so what they do is, for years, they've been giving us shallow answers to a problem that requires us to get into the detail. So it's a matter of both sides sitting down and stop using immigration as a political football to try to garner votes. That's what's been going on, and it's continuing now, and that's why we had that shutdown. Look, if you go back and look at some of the previous tapes on people like Schumer and other people who were saying, President Clinton, we absolutely have to stop these people from coming across the border illegally. It's not right. We have to protect U.S. jobs, and on and on and on. What suddenly changed? I mean, Schumer suddenly is saying, well, we're not going to all deals off the table now because he didn't get his way, because he was stonewalling for political reasons. I mean, you don't hold the people's tax dollars that they expect to be used for the improvement of their quality of life and the legal residency here hostage because you want to play a political game. That's the problem in Washington. They spend more time focusing on partisan politics, and that's what, when they get under the dome, that's what they spend most of the time on, fighting over that, not over how are we going to take care of those families over there in outside our building here, outside the dome, that live 10 miles away that have no housing, or our veterans who don't have proper support in some other state somewhere else. They're tone deaf to all of what's going on out there because they're so focused on listening to the insider fighting that's going on in Washington, and the people are sick and tired of it. They've had enough of it, and they want the people that they put there to focus on what matters to them and their families, and stop, spending their time over these partisan arguments.
Sheriff, we got to go to a commercial break, but are you willing to stay on the other side of and we're going to talk about the Democratic response and your opinions on that. Sure. Sheriff, how you doing?
Yeah, good.
Sorry about the issues with the phone, but so did you get to see the Democratic response from Congressman Joe Kennedy?
Yes.
And how do you feel about that? Again, we have Sheriff Hodgson on the line, Republican. Sheriff, are you still there?
I'm still here, yeah.
I don't know. Somebody's picking up the phone, apparently, and trying to dial out. But I'm sorry. So how do you feel about what he said?
Well, look, I think Congressman Kennedy is he's a smart person. He's a bright individual. He's obviously relatively new and doesn't have the experience of some of the more seasoned members of Congress. I think that the response was really, unfortunately, typical of what has been going on, and I think that most of the American people are really tired of. It was sort of completely ignoring what the president has accomplished in the last year and where the country's going, and basically painting this sort of dark picture of America and how things aren't working and failing. And I know he referred to essentially that the Trump administration was bullying people. I mean, look, the American people aren't stupid. When the idea of bullying comes up, I think the first thing they think of is the past administration with regards to the IRS and people that were targeted through the IRS, and this idea that the president is is out of touch. I mean, the whole speech that he gave, unfortunately, and I don't think that it's really sort of the Joe Kennedy I've known in the short period of time. I think he took the responsibility of sort of giving the party answer.
I'm sorry about what's going on with this phone. I have no idea why this is happening.
I'm not really sure, but as long as I can still hear when I'm done, I'll be all set.
Yeah, you and me both. It's coming in my ears as well.
But I think, the idea was, it came across as though it was like obstruction around every corner. Anytime that, he could throw up something that in the face of what the president was talking about, he did. I do want to say, first of all, I do thank the congressman for selecting Fall River as the site to give the response, and particularly at vocational. In fact, one of the things the president spoke of in his speech was the importance of getting more vocational schools for more opportunities for kids to be educated in the vocational field. And Fall River, of course, is a great city with a large Portuguese population. Although they didn't build the city, they certainly were very instrumental in developing the city over the years through their hard work and through their cultural contributions. But so I commend the congressman for selecting the city of Fall River for the site. But I do think what I hope will happen, and I think it will with his, as he gets more experienced, that he will see that, look, with the new generation coming in, if they don't fall into the trap of the old timers telling them, hey, look, this is the party line, this is what we should say, even though it's really not reflective of what's going on, we just have to stick to the same sort of sheet of music, that he'll be in time understanding that the American people, whether it's Republicans or Democrats.
So I got to the bottom of it. I think that's on your side, by the way, because
no, I don't think so.
Okay.
But they don't want they don't, whether it's Republicans or Democrats, they don't want people going down there playing party politics. They're tired of it. They're tired of the people they put down there to drill down and focus on their issues, spending time on things that don't matter to the American people about, who said this, who said that, and playing the insider baseball stuff. They want people to sit down and talk about, how are you going to improve my quality of life? How are you going to lower the education costs for my kids? How are you going to, help my father or my grandfather who's a veteran get the proper health care that they rightfully deserve? I mean, these are the things that matter to the American people that the elected officials down in Washington just aren't paying attention to because they're too busy doing their self-serving politics. You had, if you remember, and again, you talk about obstructionism. We don't have to go that far back where we saw people, members of Congress, standing in there pushing false narratives, hands up, don't shoot. We saw them acting like petulant children, sitting on the floor in the United States Capitol, protesting. The people that we send to Washington, we expect to go down there, have different points of view, but teach everyone that you can have different points of view and respectfully disagree. But the good dialogue and debate is what makes this country great. Having one point of view dominate is not the answer, and I don't think most Americans feel that. I think most Americans feel that, we don't have a problem with you, arguing vociferously over issues. That used to be the way it was, and that's how you get the best solutions. But we have gotten to a point where people have just, when they sat down last night, this is something that really, really, I think, troubled most viewers. When they sat down last night, a number of the Democrats sat there when the president was talking about saluting the flag. When he spoke about, in God we trust, and that the core value of our nation has to do with our family and our faith. And they just sat there. When he talked about black unemployment being the lowest it's ever been in the history of this country, and the Black Caucus and the Democrats just sat there and wouldn't stand up and even applaud that. That's not a partisan thing. That's something that matters to people in America, that they are getting opportunities, that things are changing. That matters, and they ought to be celebrating those kinds of achievements that are happening over this short period of time. We want elected officials. You can differ, but when it comes time, you also have a responsibility, even if you don't necessarily agree with the issues on those common core issues that I just spoke of. you want to stand up and motivate America. You want to get people to rally and feel good about some of these things, because that also, attitude also contributes to success. And if you have people that are creating this idea that, well, we're just not going to acknowledge it, we're going to protest and send a different message, then okay, but you're not helping America, and you're not doing what people expected you to do. I think Congressman Kennedy, I think he was well intended. I thought his delivery was good. I think the content was a pretty partisan thing that most people that listened thought. 75% of the people today have said that they really enjoyed the president's speech.
Sheriff,
75% didn't care for it.
Now, really quick to follow up. So the Democratic argument would be that Donald Trump is taking a lot of credit for things that he hasn't done, and he's actually passed very little legislation. What do you say to that argument?
Well, I'm not sure that they've ever come up with specifics about what he hasn't done. I mean, he's been very specific about it. He's the one that that instead of making us appear weak in regards to our military, he's now almost completely taken over almost 100% of the territory because of his position and his decision to aggressively go after ISIS. That was his achievement. He pushed the tax bill through. He's had to meet with members of Congress to try to get both sides to come together to get some deals through. There's not many better deal makers than President Trump, and he's been very successful at that. So there's a lot of things. I mean, the stock market is going. I mean, week after week, the thing is going up and up and up. People's 401ks are increasing by somewhere close to 35%. These are real things that the president, because of the position he's taken, and I mentioned a minute ago about attitude, the stock market moves based on where they think the mood of things are going. And the president's created a mood in this country that America is going to come first. You got companies coming back here, certainly not because of the previous administration. I mean, look, they're coming back here because the president made incentives for them to come back, and now they're giving bonuses to employees. I mean, instead of people minimizing it, I think it was not too long ago that Nancy Pelosi was hailing the idea under the past administration that people were going to get a $40 increase based on some tax cut. I mean, $40. And then she's calling these $1,000 rebates and $4,000 savings crumbs. I mean, look, if you're going to work against, if your position is that I'm just going to say the complete opposite of what's really going on because I don't have any other ideas, and I can't say that I'm the one that really had anything to do with the achievements that are going forward, I'll just make it look like it's really not an achievement, and I'll create distractions around it and find reasons why people shouldn't think it's okay. And that's not what America's about.
Sheriff, I want to thank you so much for your comments on the State of the Union address. Again, this is Sheriff Tom Hodgson, Republican Sheriff from Bristol County, Massachusetts. Thank you so much for your points. Thank you for joining us. Sorry about the connection issues.
No problem.
Have a great day. You got it. Katie, I want to hear your opinions about the State of the Union address last night. So tell me about what you thought about how Donald Trump did. Tell me about what you thought of how Joe Kennedy's response was, because he brought that live to you from Diamond Regional Vocational Technical High School, which is the paragon of vocational education in all of the United States. What say you, caller? Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
All right. Can't complain. On the right side of the grass this morning. Nice sunny day. Things are good. Feeling pretty positive about the president's speech last night. I thought he did a great job. Actually, I thought he hit a home run on that one.
Okay.
I like all the success that the United States is having. I only wish that Democrats would cooperate. I can only imagine what they could get done if they would just come together and work together rather than opposition at every step of the way. That being said, I'm pretty disgusted, and I don't know how anybody wouldn't be, with the behavior of the Democrats during the speech, sitting there. I mean, you had the guy from North Korea who basically got his legs severed off and walked on crutches for thousands of miles to get out of North Korea. And, you know, they had chose to honor that gentleman, and not one, I didn't see any Democrats getting up, not even so much as clapping or anything. That was pretty disgusting. Along with the police officers, the fireman, the soldier that was there, I thought that was pretty disgusting. I think what it does is it shows how utterly useless the Democratic Party has become. And I don't mean, you know, maybe new people coming in, they want to do the right thing. The people that have been there a while, there's no use for them anymore. They've proven that they're not in it for the American people. They're in it for themselves. And for some of the callers and to call in, like one lady called in and said on your show and said, "Oh, you know how much debt Donald Trump is racking up." I wonder if they live like in a parallel universe, because I didn't hear anybody complaining when Barack Obama was bringing our national debt from 7-point-something trillion to 20-point-something trillion, but yet they're complaining about Trump right now.
Now, to that point, so there's a couple of points you brought up. So the first part that you brought up, we'll talk about the most recent thing that you said, and we'll go back. So both parties have increased the national debt, and I'm going to go and say this. Both parties will continue to increase the national debt. So that argument is bunk, and I agree with you on both sides. People who are arguing it when Obama did it, it was bunk. People who are arguing it now while Trump is doing it, is bunk. It was bunk when George Bush was doing it. So it's a continuously a bad argument.
I think George Bush raised the debt. It might have been $1 or $2 trillion. If I remember, he brought it from 5 to 7, and Obama brought it from 7 to 20.
And the other thing that I want to bring up is, so there's also compounding interest and stuff like that plays into it. And over an 8-year period of time, compounding interest makes a big difference. But the other thing that I want to bring up is you talked about people not standing during certain things. And I know I can talk about this with you because you're a caller who understands and you're willing to listen to both sides of this. So that being said, if they don't agree with something, they have the right to continue to sit. Now,
right, but I think it's common human decency to acknowledge a soldier, a fireman, a policeman, or a gentleman who crawled, basically walked on crutches.
I think you're right.
Miles to gain his freedom.
I think you're right. Now, to finish the point, when Barack Obama was giving the speech, the Republican side would sit the same way that the Democratic side sit. So again, This is an argument that both parties say about each other, and it's something that continues to happen.
I disagree with you there, because they may have sat when Obama was talking on regular political stuff, but when you're acknowledging an individual that's there present in the audience. The cop who adopted, the drug addict's baby, for instance. I mean, really? That you're going to play partisan politics with that guy? You're going to play partisan politics with a soldier who ran into a booby trap building to save another guy and did CPR for over an hour to save the guy's life while that guy's alive today because of that. So you're going to play partisan politics with that? I think that's pretty low.
The other thing that happens, and this didn't happen really during the State of the Union address because I was listening for it. The other thing that was happening, or usually happens, is somebody pushes an agenda idea, and then they point somebody out in the crowd, and they get the applause for the person in the crowd, but really they're just trying to push their agenda idea, and they try to show, hey, everybody supports this because they're all standing up, when really it's just the agenda idea. That didn't really happen in this speech, but I've seen that happen at the local level, the state level, and even at the State of the Union addresses.
Okay, how about is immigration giving the DACA recipients a path to citizenship would you say it's more of a Republican thing or a Democrat thing?
Well, I know where you're going with this, because ultimately you're going to say that he provided the pathway to give them a path for citizenship, and the Democrats said no. Right,
and they sat for the whole thing. When they were being given what it is they wanted, they still, oh, no, it's Donald Trump, and I hate him because he's Donald Trump, and he's a Republican, so I won't stand and I won't accept it. Meanwhile, 2-point-something million, so-called illegals are getting hurt by it. They don't care about those illegals. They don't care about the American people. They care about partisan politics. Moving on to Joe Kennedy, I was expecting more from the guy, to be honest with you. I liked the early Kennedys. I had no use for Teddy or any of that crowd, and I was hoping this kid was going to be a little bit different. But it was like a script. It was a bad acting. It looked like it was like all scripted, and it was just bad. You could tell he was acting the whole thing more, just like the sheriff said. Oh, if I can't, claim responsibility for the success, I'll just, trash it and, cast doubt upon it. and he goes out there looking like he just ate a bagel with a quart of butter on it. Should at least wiped his face before he got in front of the camera. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Thank you so much for your points. Have a great day.
Yeah.
Bagel with a quart of butter. Thank you. I think there's points to be made on both sides of this argument, and the great place to have that conversation is here, because obviously people are still divided. And it seems to me like there were olive branches that were handed out by Donald Trump on the State of the Union address, and there were also olive branches, or there was also pleas for help from the Democratic response. What say you? You're live on 1480 WSAR.
Hi, I loved his address, and I love the fact that in my paycheck this week I got an extra $133.
$133 extra in your paycheck. Now, you paid weekly or biweekly?
I called up the Mass Teachers Retirement Board and was told that that's because of the tax cut.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just got upset when I saw Representative Gutierrez walk out of the hallway when they were saying USA, USA. I mean, what is wrong with promoting your own country? I thought that was very classless.
Well, I think that there's obviously some clear divisions there, and people are getting elected not by working together, but by being as divisive as possible, because it makes for great news. Look, we're talking about them standing or sitting during things that he said, more so than the actual content that what was actually said, or not more so, but we're talking about it, right? So we should be talking about the address, how Democrats are going to work with that, and unfortunately, it's more so about the drama behind the whole thing. Do you agree?
But I don't understand, and I'm trying to understand why. I know they want to dock a bill that's clean. That means we'll discuss it, we'll vote on it without the absence of any of the things that the Republicans want. Why they don't understand that security, the interchain migration, the visa lottery, those things have to at least go hand in hand, if not before, is beyond me. I don't know why they're being so stubborn about that.
Well, if you go to the fact check and he talks about chain migration being one of the reasons why stuff happens, and hold on, I gotta find that in my notes. All right, so he said 2 terrorist attacks because of the visa lottery and chain migration, and that was spin because those 2 terrorist attacks were from people who entered legally.
Well, my concern isn't about whether the terrorist attacks are that. My concern is that chain migration brings in everyone who's not, they don't even have to be vetted. They simply have to be a relation, 10 times removed. There has to be a limit as to how many people we can take in, because that means they have to have jobs. They have to be educated. They have to be supported. And if they're coming here and they don't have, remember the sponsorship when you couldn't come unless some family member would take you in and guarantee those things?
If you let me, so actually on that point, because he also said the immigrants can bring in unlimited distant relatives, which is exactly what you said, and that's actually false. And the reason is citizens and green card holders can only petition for immediate family members, and still there's a lengthy wait, and 4 million people are waiting for that process to happen. So this idea that you can have distant relatives go through isn't true unless they go through the illegal process.
Well, that's what's happening is a lot. Well, I don't know if you're knowledgeable about this, but a lot of the Portuguese immigrants are coming to the country through Canada illegally.
Okay.
Okay, and then they stay here. Well, there was a person on the front page of the Herald News who was a Brazilian who came here legally and then overstayed their visa, and now she's one of those people worried about being deported.
Well, that's a lot of what happens, too, is people overstay their visas. In every single city in this entire nation, there are people who are there undocumented or illegal, whatever terminology you want to use, and they are from various countries throughout the entire world.
Don't you think it would be beneficial for us to set up a new agency where we do that? We do visa checks. We're in the computer. I mean, we're in the age of the computer. In the computer, it pops up, okay, on this date, certain visa is going to be done. They have to come in, they have to check it and renew, or else they have to leave. Would that be that hard to do?
I think you're bringing up a fair point, and the thing is, if we can get Congress to work together, maybe something like that gets done.
Well, let's just hope.
Thank you so much for your call.
Bye.
Have a great day. Today, we're going to go back to the lines. We're in our last segment, so we're going to kind of breeze through some of these calls and let you state your opinion. You're live on the legendary 1480 WSAR. Good morning. Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
Great.
All right,
I'd just like to touch on a quick story. What the sheriff was saying. When people are hiring people that go to work on the house and stuff like that, make sure those people are Americans and nobody else.
I think that's a concern because wage theft is something that we continue to talk about. I'll let you make a final point, and we're going to go to the next call. All right. Well, have a great day, caller. You're live on the legendary 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Good morning, Rich. Hey,
Hi.
great show this morning.
Thank you so much.
Hey, just two quick points. One, with the caller that was castigating the Democrats for sitting on their hands when the policeman was held up as an example, as well as the person who crawled for miles and miles because of lost legs. I have to wonder, how did this person feel, or how did others like that feel when Donald Trump made those unkind remarks about John McCain back during the pre-election days, calling him a coward and not a true hero. And then two, the other thing I do find continually disturbing is this growing xenophobia nationwide over outsiders. Immigrants are all being painted in a color of as being, some kind of continuing growing threat. And I just think, people are not looking at both sides of the argument, either in the case of immigration or, again, in the case of castigating the Democrats as, for sitting on their hands, et cetera. It just shows to me that I don't think people take the time to look at the history of things, as you have pointed out, with quite success, about how both parties raise debts and both parties sit on their hands depending on who the president is, and that's about all I wanted to say.
Well, thank you so much for your points, and I think you make some very good points. Have a great day. You're live in the legendary 1480 WSAR. Good morning. Hello.
Well, are you talking to me?
I am talking to you.
Oh, okay, I wasn't sure. It's the first time I ever called.
Yeah, well, welcome.
Well, thank you. I mean, I just happened to just listen to your show just a few seconds ago for the first time. I want to address some of the conversation that's going on about immigration. Now, one of the things that happens here in the politics that they love to pick on immigration is because most people don't know much about it. Now, the caller that was talking about the fact that, they just come in here illegally, whatever, or they're not vetted, there is a huge process that goes on in order to get people to come here, and actually goes through a visa process, and you get vetted quite a bit. There's an affidavit of support. I don't know if people know that, but actually you have to prove that you can actually support the person where they're actually coming in, and you have to show your taxes, and you have to show how much money you make.
Let me interrupt
blah, blah,
you real quick. And let me just interrupt you real quick. We're in our last segment, and I don't want to cut you off, but I'm trying to allow everybody else to kind of say, and we have like 2 minutes left. So can you make a final point, and then we'll go to the next call? I know you're a first-time caller, and I hate to do this to you.
Well, the point is that people are quite basically, this conversation is just divides people. It just makes them to be more racist, a little more discriminatory, and actually there's quite a bit of rules and regulations with immigration that actually happen. The other thing is that Brazilians are not Portuguese, and Portuguese are not Cape Verdeans, and Verdeans are not Puerto Ricans. My point is, people get educated, and if not, they have somebody who actually knows about it and get an immigration lawyer online and actually talk about it and actually get some real information, some real good, knowledge, instead of actually criticizing and not, just feeding into the fear, the discrimination, and so on.
Thank you so much for your points. Have a great day. Thank you for being a first-time caller. And we're going to go to you. You were the last caller of the day, and you have 30 seconds. Go for it, caller.
You know what's discouraging is when, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, is these grown men, seasoned politicians cannot come together and agree upon anything. I listened to Kennedy at Diamond last night. He's like, all these recent stock market gains, they're all going to the CEOs. That's not true. I have an IRA account that has almost doubled in the last 8 months. And I don't care if it's Obama that did it or Trump. I don't care. But to say blanket statements like that, like all that money's going to the CEOs, that is just a hate. That's a hater remark. Why don't you give credit where credit is due, like a grown man? Why can't you do that?
I'm going to hold you there because you made a great point. We're at the end of the show. Thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate the conversation. The State of the Union address obviously has made some impacts on you, and I am looking forward to talking to you tomorrow, 9 to 11 a.m.